Hello everyone, it's Robin the Delta Crafter and I want to thank you for joining me for another video on my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be using the third color combination from my fall color combos to make a beautiful card filled with colorful bats. Let's get into it. So in the third color combo, we introduced some pink. So the distress colors I'll be using today will be Squeezed Lemonade, Carved Pumpkin, and Kitsch Flamingo. So I'm bringing in a piece of Nina Classic Crest Solar White cardstock in the 80-pound weight, and that's what I'm going to be using it for my inking. I'm going to ink up about a half of each of these A2 size panels with each of the three colors. So I'm starting off with Kitsch Flamingo, and I've laid down a decent amount of that. Then I'm going to move on to Squeezed Lemonade. And I'm using ink blending brushes for my ink blending, but you can use whatever blending tool you may have. Our third color is going to be Carved Pumpkin. We're going to bring in another piece of cardstock to ink up with this color. My Kitsch Flamingo ink pad seemed a little dry, so I'm adding some of my Distress Re-Inker in Kitsch Flamingo to that ink pad, allowing it a little bit of time to soak in, and now I'm coming in and covering that color again. You can see it's intensified quite a bit. Let's move on to the next step. So now that our card panels have had just a few moments to dry back, I'm going to bring in my splatter box, and I'm going to place both panels in the splatter box, and we're going to splatter some black soot ink all over these panels. And again, I'm still using the distress ink, regular distress inks. And I'm going to place a little bit of that ink on my glass craft mat. This glass craft mat is perfect for this type of technique. And if you'd like to pick up one, I'll have a discount code for you located in the description box below. So because these inks are water reactive, I've sprayed some water on the inks with a distress spray bottle. And now I dip my paintbrush in there, and I'm tapping it with another paintbrush and splattering that black soot ink all over my inked up panels. So this is going to give us some texture as well as carry through our Halloween colors. So I'm going to give both of these panels just a little bit of time to dry because the splatters are kind of big. And then we're going to move on to our die cutting. So these are the bats dies from scrapbook.com. And you can see there that these dies come in a bunch of different sizes. And that's one of the things I love about this die set. I'm using a piece of mint tape to tape my die in place. And I'm going to use the smallest bat die that's in the set to cut out a ton of the bats in the different colors. And you can see here, I even was able to get some that are kind of ombre where the colors kind of overlapped a little bit, or where the colors were a little bit lighter. And that's going to really add a lot of dimension to our final product. So using my jewel picker, I'm just going to grab some of the bats and kind of lay them out the way I want them to be on the card. The first thing I want to do is lay out one of each color bat. So then I can kind of eyeball and get a visual about where my color bands, because I'm going to lay these out in color bands, where my color bands are going to be on my card panel. These bats, are going to be going in a diagonal across the card. And so I want to kind of know where my yellow area will be, my orange area, and then my pink as well. So now I've kind of eyeballed all of that. I'm going to go in and start laying out more bats. I want to start in the middle with the orange just because I know that's going to be my largest band, just because of the area that it's covering on the panel. Then I'm going to come in and lay down a little bit more of the pink. And I'm trying to kind of maybe get some of the ombre colored bats to be in the area where they overlay with the other color. You don't have to do that. That was just something that I wanted to do. And then once I got them all laid down, I continued to fiddle with them for a little bit until I got a placement that I was happy with. You can see there that I actually kind of moved all of my bats in a little bit tighter, filled in some of the white space and got more bats on the card panel. I'm using the press and seal to pick up all those bats so that they stay in the same place that I laid them out. And now I'm going to flip that press and seal over, and using my Artis liquid glue, I'm going to add some dots of glue to the back of most of the bats, not all of them, because I'm going to come in later on with some foam dots and give some of the bats a little bit of dimension. So I'm just going to tap a little bit of glue onto the dots, to the bats that I want to be adhered directly to the card panel. And now I'm going to turn my press and seal over and kind of lay that over my card panel and press those bats into place. Now, one thing that you could do if you didn't want just a plain white background, you could add some texture to the background with a embossing folder. You could also add some inking to that background, maybe a light blue for a sky. Whatever you want to do to add to your card, it's your heart's desire. So while those bats were drying, I did place an acrylic block on top of them to hold them in place. And now I'm peeling back the press and seal and picking up all the bats that did not have the Artis glue on them. I'm bringing in some small, thin foam dots, and I'm actually going to cut these in half. That way they fit nicely behind the wings of my bats. So I'm just cutting those in half and again placing them behind the wings of the bat, so that's going to give these bats a little bit of lift and dimension as they are adhered to the card panel. Putting down some there, and I'm going to cover all of the bats. I'm going to peel off the backer from the foam dots, and now I'm going to place those bats onto the card panel, and they're going to overlap some of the bats that are already adhered to the card panel, which is going to add to the dimension as well. It's really the purpose of why we even added the foam dots, to give a little bit of lift so that some of the bats can overlay the ones that are adhered directly to the card panel. So pressing all of those bats into place, I'm now able to pull back that press and seal once again and reveal a fully covered, colorful bat panel. You need to be a little bit careful when you do this so that you don't rip up your bats and you don't rip your paper. Also, so you don't rip your bat. Just be gentle. So let's take a look at what we've created here. Can you see the lift that some of those bats have because of that foam tape? I think that it adds so much to the card. So now we're going to move on to adding our sentiment. I'm using the Ghost die set from scrapbook.com, and I'm going to use the Boo sentiment that's in this die set. It comes with a shadow, but I'm not going to use the shadow. I'm just going to use the letters. Because they're connected, I don't necessarily have to use the shadow. And I like the simplicity of just the plain Boo sentiment. I did cut that out from black cardstock. I cut it out 3 times, and now I'm going to adhere these 3 layers of the Boo sentiment together. Bringing in that Artis glue one more time, and just tapping little small dots of glue all along this thin sentiment. And now that I have everything covered with glue, I'm going to lay the 3 layers on top of each other and create a dimensional sentiment. While the glue is still liquid, I'm going to kind of press everything and make sure the alignment is good. After the alignment is good and I'm satisfied with that, I'm just going to take a small acrylic block and place it on top of that sentiment just to make sure that everything is secured nicely to each other. Brought in some more of that Artis glue, and I added a little bit more to the back layer, and now I'm placing the sentiment onto the bats of the card panel. I like how you can see the bats through the sentiment too. Another reason why not to use the shadow. You know me, gotta add some foam to the back of the panel to pop it up. So I'm gonna add a couple of strips to that and take the backer tape off. And now we're gonna place our panel onto our card base. The card base is made from Accent Opaque 120-pound weight cardstock that I've folded with a top folding orientation. I left some of the bats hanging off the card panel because I wasn't sure if I wanted to have that overlap or if I wanted to be nice and crisp and clean and trim them off. And once I got the panel adhered, I decided the crisp and clean look was what I wanted to go for. So I'm bringing in my cutter bee scissors and I'm just going to trim off the overlap. And after that's done, this card is complete. I want to thank you for joining me for another video on my YouTube channel today. I hope you join the Delta Crafter family by subscribing to the channel and hitting the notification bell to be notified of when I post new videos. You can always find me on Instagram and Facebook at the Delta Crafter, as well as on my website, thedeltacrafter.com. The products I used today will be listed and linked below for you in the description box. Again, I want to thank you for joining me, and until next time, everyone, enjoy!